lovers of the beautiful game. It's international break across the world of football. And I thought before, probably this is the best opportunity for us to be able to do some form of reflection as fans, across the spectrum. If you're an Arsenal fan or any other Premier League team fan, or even a fan of other football teams in the world. I think it's an important time for us to reflect where our teams have been. We've had a couple of games in the season so far for us to be able to do, to sort of conduct such an assessment where we are, what could we improve, and what are the things that can concern us going into the next part of the season. And from an Arsenal perspective, of course, which will dominate this video, there are a couple of things that we need to think about. Think about injuries. Think about performances in the first 6, 7 games. Think about what is it that we need to improve on and how it's going to look going into the January transfer window. What do we need to reinforce? And the sort of hell return that Arsenal has in October as well. And of course, to just look at how we stand looking at those couple of fixtures against Tottenham and then Liverpool. But importantly, I wanted us to just check on what the international break brings. Of course, the international break has got an implication on club football. For Arsenal, it's been quite a heavy one in the sense that, our player that's most vulnerable to injuries, our physically most insecure player, who is actually our most physical player, it's actually quite ironic, Thomas Partey, has been called up or was called up to Ghana, at least until a couple of days ago, where Arsenal called him back to London Colney to conduct some tests since he suffered another strain in his knee, I think. And so we sort of have news at this point that he's been called back to London Colney for supervision, and to make sure that he doesn't play the second game that Ghana plays, and I think that's tonight or tomorrow evening. Tomiyasu has been called back by the club as well, which I think is a good move on both ends because Tomiyasu has recently come back from injury, and we don't want to risk him. And Arsenal felt like it's a big risk. He played one game, I think, and they're not allowing him to play the second one, or they sort of tentative around allowing him to play the second game. And he's been called back, and we've been fortunate. As much as Arsenal fans have been complaining about the non-selection of Ben White, the non-selection of the three Gabriels for Brazil, uh, the good thing about that is that they aren't risks for injuries because we have got a hectic schedule coming up straight after the international break, with probably our first major test in terms of consecutive games against Tottenham and Liverpool respectively. So the question is, why is it that Arsenal called Tomiyasu back? Is it a strategic choice from Arsenal to not risk him for the second game, or did Tomiyasu suffer something already? And the same can be asked for Partey. But I don't want to focus on Partey because it's gonna it makes me emotional, the thing of Partey, because he's never really available for us. And every time we hit some form of a run, he gets injured and that run stops because everyone knows, or everyone sort of predicts or speculates that it would have been a different outcome against Manchester United had Thomas Partey been available. And I, for one, support that argument in the sense that, the stability that it gives us in the midfield is clearly something that we rely upon in terms of how we want to play. And so when he's not there, and no less him being not there against the toughest opponent we faced this season, which is Manchester United, sort of weakened us in the spine. And so I hope that is available against Tottenham this coming weekend, and I hope is available against Liverpool as well. But we wait to see. And of course, the value of rest is something that's quite important for the players who've not been there. Another thing to mention in the international break is that England are in absolute shit. Asema Simbin. They ain't lost the Queen only, they've lost the rhythm as well. Gareth Southgate had somewhat found a rhythm, of this ugly football he was playing that was effective. And I think now he's lost the efficacy part as well. And they haven't won, I think, in 5 straight games. It's been tough. He insists on playing Harry Maguire. And all of those things are coming back to bite him. And I don't think that England would make the decision of sacking him before the World Cup, since he's got them to the World Cup and got them to a final or semi-final in the previous two tournaments. I don't think they'll sack him, but I don't think that they'll get very far in that World Cup if he doesn't change his ways. And knowing managers, he's going to stick to his guns and think, I got here doing what I know best, and therefore I'm going to continue doing it, and he's going to get slapped. The three Lions are going to get 3 slaps, and they're going to be out of that tournament ASAP. So I don't see anything happening there. And of course, coming back to South Africa, Bafana Bafana, and that's our international break as well. The least said about Bafana Bafana, the better usually. But now they won 4-0 against Sierra Leone. But Bafana only performs this way when it doesn't matter. When other teams have no skin in the game, this is a friendly, nothing to play for, and we go bang them 4-0. We can't even beat Cape Verde when we really need to beat them. And so I really, and Sao Tome and stuff like that, Principe, I really don't want to talk about Bafana, but I just wanted to mention it that it's important to notice this pattern where they win impressively when it doesn't matter. So it's a question of heart, it's a question of desire, it's a question of wanting to represent the badge. And there's a problem around disrespecting the nation when it comes to the footballers of the country where I come from. I almost said this country. I'm not in this country, I'm in the United States. And speaking of them as well, it doesn't look good on that part. They've been slapped up recently, but a good thing for Arsenal is that Matt Turner performed wonderfully in that game, even though they were slapped up, I think 4-0 or 2-0. But Matt Turner was the man of the match because he made a couple of saves. I watched the highlights and he was the biggest highlight for the USMNT. So on that score, Arsenal can be happy that he's got some game time, Matt Turner, so that he can be able to be ready as and when the need arises. If Air Ramsdale is not available or is injured, and when we need to rotate him, of course, in the Europa League group stages. And I just want to finally, move on to the big point at hand. Where are we this season? How far we've come? I think 6 wins in 7 is brilliant. It's a lot of Arsenal fans would have taken that if before the season as a prediction, or if they were given that before the season started, they would have taken that. I'm taking that. And of course, I'm a little bit disappointed by losing those 3 points against Manchester United. Not because I disrespect Manchester United. I'm not part of that bandwagon where I disrespect other teams or going through rough patches. I'm just on the way we played, the bravery we showed, the courage. The way we imposed ourselves in that game. I thought we deserved a bit more than what we got. But other than that, I do believe that Man United were tactically smarter in terms of, playing to our weaknesses or what we thought were our strengths, and sort of adjusting themselves and adjusting their game to that. It was ugly, but it was effective, and therefore our naivety uh, on the day, I hope, doesn't really show when we play against Tottenham, because Tottenham are going to sit back as well, probably with more efficacy than Man United can ever sit back, because Ten Hag is not a sit back man, while Conte is known for absorbing the pressure, having the low block and hitting you on the counter, and he's got a lethal front three to be able to hurt us on the break. So I do fundamentally think that if Arteta doesn't adjust his strategy against Tottenham, we might be hurt even at home. We need to not be naive while really imposing ourselves. We also need to be able to be very clear around how we set up in terms of transition and how we block those, not give them outlets, of course. And that the ingredient to do that at Arsenal is to have Thomas Partey fit. Let's be real about it. There is no tactical way to do this outside of making sure that Thomas Partey is fit, because he's the most tactically disciplined defensive midfielder we have. And Elneny is also injured, who is a bit better than Lokonga in terms of knowing where to be, as and when we lose the ball. And so Hell Week is October when we get back. I hope Ateta is more tactically, sort of subtle, dynamic, and he's pragmatic. That's the big word I want to use. I hope he's pragmatic and practical around the fact that we don't need to play 90 minutes of beautiful football. We can play 40 to 65 minutes of beautiful football. But when we need to suffer, let's suffer, and also let's just be aware and refuse to play such a high line that Son, Kane, and Kulusevski or Richarlison, depending on what Conte goes for, hits us on the break. And so, yeah, and then straight after that, we've got Liverpool, which they're not on a good run. But what you know for sure is that, they're picking up and they're not going to be bad for the rest of the season. So we need to be our best in order to beat Liverpool, and Liverpool need to drop a little bit for us to be able to beat them. So on the day, we need to be 100%. But if we get 6 points from those two games, or at least four, we still remain in that conversation around the top four. If we get 6 points, we are in the conversation, even further, or even louder, so to speak. So I do think that we need to be able to be quite humble going into this game, but also believe that this might be season defining, these couple of games after the international break. Let me know what your comments are. Let me know where you see our season going at the end, or how far you've rated, how you've rated our season so far. For me, I rated 8 out of 10 so far. And in terms of where I think we'll finish, I'm doing a solid prediction now, and I won't review it another time. I predict that Arsenal will finish fourth in the Premier League comfortably, and we might do some business in the Europa League. Come on, you Gunners!